Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, today we're doing something highly specialized. This isn't your standard travel overview. Consider this a tactical briefing. We've tailored this entirely for the professional climbers, the elite mountaineers, and the expedition leaders out there who are hunting for the absolute ultimate prize in the alpine world, a first ascent in Pakistan's Karakoram range. We're pulling directly from on-the-ground expedition data to give you the exact playbook you need to tackle this incredibly rare, unforgiving landscape.
If you're an elite climber, you know the frustrating reality of the modern mountaineering scene all too well. I mean, we've all seen those viral images, right? The long queues of climbers bottlenecked on the world's most famous summits, the overcrowded base camps, the heavily worn routes. It's tough, but when we look at the data coming out of Pakistan, it presents this stark, almost unbelievable contrast. We are talking about raw, completely untouched peaks. This is an environment that just hasn't been commercialized yet. It offers the kind of pristine isolation and true exploration that honestly a lot of folks thought had vanished from the Earth decades ago.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is how we're going to systematically cover the vital logistics needed to safely pull off a historic climb. We'll hit 1. The last mountaineering frontier. 2. Targets for first ascents. 3. The summer weather window. 4. Permits and local logistics. And finally, 5. Expert operators ensure safety.
Starting off with Section 1, the last mountaineering frontier, beyond the crowds.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that number right there, 7,453 meters. Pakistan's Karakoram range isn't just another mountain chain. It's home to some of the most technically challenging and remote mountains on the entire planet. And because of the sheer harshness of the conditions and the extreme remoteness, an astonishing number of these peaks remain totally unclimbed. It's quite literally the final frontier. That's 7,453 meters. That's the altitude of Machu Picchu. In the global mountaineering community, this mountain is widely considered to be the highest unclimbed peak in the world. Just let that sink in for a second. In an era where we've mapped literally every inch of the globe via satellite, a 7,453-meter giant remains utterly unconquered by human boots. It's the ultimate benchmark of endurance.
But you know, the physical challenge is really only half the story here. There's a fascinating geopolitical layer that makes this specific moment in time completely unique. Take the regions encompassing peaks like Saltoro Kangri and Ghent Kangri. Since the 1980s, these border areas have been strictly closed off to mountain climbers due to military tensions between India and Pakistan. But the situation has shifted. As of 2026, the region is officially open for all trekking and expedition teams. That means mountains that have been locked away behind military borders for over 40 years are suddenly accessible. The window of exclusivity is open, right now.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 2, Targets for First Ascents, the Ultimate Prize. For you analytical minds out there mapping out your routes, these aren't just mountains on a spreadsheet. They are near-mythical challenges. Notice Pumari Chish sitting at 7,492 meters, only one ascent ever recorded, way back in 1979 by a Japanese team. Or look at Sia Kengri, untouched since 1939. That is over 80 years without a human reaching the summit. K6 West is noted as a highly technical mountain that's rarely even attempted. And Yongkangri, standing at 6,727 meters, there is absolutely no official record of an ascent, ever. These statistics represent an unprecedented opportunity to literally write your name into the history books.
But hey, let's drop the hype for a second and look at the brutal reality of these numbers. Take Batura V, towering at 7,400 meters. The data is clear, 0 summits. But the reason for that 0 is what really matters. Expedition reports explicitly cite that this peak is severely prone to avalanches and is highly remote. This isn't a playground. It's a highly volatile, downright deadly environment. Batura V remains untouched precisely because the mountain demands absolute perfection in skill, judgment, and risk management. Perfection that no team has yet been able to execute.
Which brings us to Section 3, the summer weather window. Timing is everything. So the crucial point is that your viable weather window is strictly, emphatically narrowed down to June through August. This is what's known as the Karakoram summer window. This specific 3-month block is literally the only time that provides the relatively stable weather required to survive high-altitude mountaineering here. Now, expedition operators do note that if you're just a mountain trekker sticking to the lower valleys, you can extend your season by a whole month. But for elite climbers pushing into the death zone on unclimbed peaks, you absolutely do not have that luxury. You are bound strictly to the stable conditions of June, July, and August.
Moving right along to Section 4, Permits and Local Logistics, making it happen. Operating legally and successfully in this terrain follows a very rigid three-step logistical chain. First up, you must secure mandatory climbing permits. Because of the proximity to the Indian border, this is definitely not a step you can wing. It requires exact paperwork filed months in advance. Second, you have to arrange comprehensive logistics just to actually reach these unmapped base camps. And third, you must secure local support. You cannot simply drop into these vast Baltistan valleys and navigate them solo. The entire infrastructure requires a highly coordinated effort from the ground up.
And that leads us to our final piece of the playbook, Section 5. Expert operators ensure safety, your lifeline.
And this brilliantly illustrates our main takeaway. In an environment this profoundly remote, working with an experienced tour operator to ensure safety isn't just some marketing line. It is a fundamental rule of survival. Local indigenous expert operators understand the nuanced microclimates. They secure those incredibly strict mandatory permits we just talked about. And crucially, they have the logistical backbone to extract you if something goes catastrophically wrong. Honestly, they're the difference between a successful first ascent and a tragic failure.
To really picture what you and your local operators will actually be navigating, imagine facing technically challenging granite walls. These are often compared to the legendary Trango Towers, though typically lower in height. But every bit is demanding. You're dealing with enormous, vast valleys that are near impossible to navigate without local guides who know the terrain intimately. Fortunately, highly hospitable local communities form the absolute backbone of this infrastructure, adding this incredible, rich cultural depth to the severe physical challenge of the expedition.
Well, we've laid out the playbook for you. You know the history, the staggering elevations, the strictly enforced weather windows, and the absolute necessity of expert local logistics. The Karakoram Range in Pakistan is standing wide open right now, offering a blank canvas for the next generation of climbing legends. The raw, untouched ice is waiting. So the only real question left to ask yourself as you begin planning your expedition is this: which untouched summit will bear your name?